Let's talk right now, Hamas launched its largest-scale attack on Israel in 50 years on the morning of October 7th. This assault marked Israel's re-entry into a state of total war, with the Gaza Strip engulfed in the flames of conflict, resulting in heavy casualties on both sides. Despite a temporary ceasefire in between, the hostilities have reignited after 2 months. Everyone wished to know when this war will come to an end. Today, we're honored to invite Israeli representative to Taiwan, Maya Yarin, back to our program to provide us with the latest updates on the situation 2 months into the conflict. Welcome, Maya.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us again.
And thank you for having me again.
After 2 months, we'd like to have an update on Israel's military operations currently. We know that hostages has been released, some hostages. There's still more there back in the Gaza Strip. And also, speaking of the progress of the attack on Hamas, like now combating Hamas, is it all aligned with our expectations?
Yeah. So today is the 60th day of this war, which started on October 7, really, as you were saying, in a surprise terror attack on Israeli citizens in Israeli territory in our homes and villages. And this war is being fought out of a responsible manner, which means that it is not coming out of revenge or out of rage. We have a set expectations and goal for this war. Number one, to return the hostages. Number two, to dismantle the military capabilities of Hamas. And number three, to not come back to the same threat that we used to have from Gaza Strip, the one that we had during the status quo, that every few months we had another round of military operations. We cannot go back to the same fight. Now, during the last week, we have seen with a lot of happiness and relief the return of 110 women and children, hostages. It's been 50 days, more than 50 days that they were held. And slowly, we start to hear the stories about them being hostage. We see the starvation on their bodies. Some of them lost, the children, 15% of their body weight. Old women lost between 8 to 15 kilos in 50 days. This is starvation. Wow. We hear about them being underground, alone, some of them, being beaten, being kept in quiet. So we are starting to hear, and it's important for me to say, because here on the media in Taiwan and also in the world, we saw the media portraying an equal image of the Palestinian families and the Israeli families being happy and relieved to see their loved one come back. But there is a huge difference between the two populations which returned. The Israelis were children and women. They were innocent civilians dragged out of their homes. And on the Palestinian side, these are convicted criminals. They were either on the way or already convicted in terrorism acts for stabbing, for planning attacks on Israeli civilians. So there is a huge difference between the two groups. Now, we still have 137 hostages being kept in Gaza. 20 of them are women. And now that we start to hear the evidence and the testimonies about this specific violence against women that was brutally performed by the Hamas terrorists on October 7th, the rapes and the sexual assaults, we are now starting to question why Hamas does not release those 20 women. Do they not want us to hear what is really happening there? So hostages is one of the priorities, but dismantling Hamas, the military capabilities, is something that we will have to continue doing. We only started with the north of Gaza, and we will continue doing so until we know that there is no longer a threat. Now, Hamas has been building itself, its capabilities, for 17 years. 17 years that they are there controlling the area and building the underground tunnels. So this will not be ending in a day. It will take time until we will be able to finish what we have set to do.
You mentioned about the underground tunnels in Gaza. And also I would like to ask about, I know that Israel intends to destroy this tunnel, which served as the main supply chain for the people in Gaza.
Yeah.
Will there be any considerations of humanitarian crisis, even though we know that this is a target that must be considered? But do you think there will be a crisis of humanitarian?
Yeah. I want to say that, and I've been stating that a long time, that the Hamas is our enemy and it's not the Palestinians. And I will say it bluntly. If Israel did not care for the Palestinian civilians, this war would have been ended on October 8th. It would have been a very quick one. But this is not the situation. We are there, and we're not only there from the air, we're there on the ground, which means that we're putting our soldiers in a much, much greater risk, because to be there in a direct contact with the Hamas terrorists puts our people in a life danger. And we do that. We're willing to do that because we care for the Palestinians and because we're a responsible country and we try to minimize the harm for civilians. Now, it's not easy because only yesterday we came up saying we have found 800 shafts, the piers to the tunnels, and we already destroyed about 500 of them. We now have evidence, and we can show that these tunnels are in the hospitals, nearby schools, in regular apartments, in kindergartens. We see that in the pictures. We have ammunition that we found in children's rooms, in houses. There is no question about it. It's not claiming anymore. Now, we are trying to do the best that we can to take the citizens, the civilians, out of the war zone. There will not be a humanitarian problem if there would not be civilians in that area. Now, how to do this? This is the question, right? How to take out the civilians from North Gaza to southern Gaza to safer areas, and now to even more condensed areas, again, according to our instructions. So we give notice, pamphlets, radio, phone calls, SMSs. We put a map of Gaza with the specific regions within the area, so we can give instructions for people from that area, those streets, please move to the other area. Nobody had a fight like this before. Think about it. We're actually telling our enemies, Hamas, we're coming, prepared. Be prepared to our soldiers. But this is what we have to do in order to protect the civilians. And on the same time, we continue to bring humanitarian aid to the southern areas of Gaza. So there are more than 3,000 trucks of humanitarian aid, food, water, tents, blankets, medical supplies. Everything is coming to southern part of Gaza. There are field hospitals that were being instructed during the humanitarian pause when we had our hostages back. Few countries installed field hospitals in the southern part of Gaza. There are foreigners and people who are ill that have left Gaza through Rafah to Egypt to receive medical care. So we do care about the humanitarian situation, and we do say that there is a difference between North Gaza and South Gaza, and we request the civilians listen to us. We're given instructions that are supposed to save your lives. So please listen to us. And at the end, we're requesting the whole international community to put the pressure on Hamas. Hamas is the ruler still in that area. Hamas is the one that was embedding himself inside of civilian areas. So Hamas is the one that needs to feel so much pressure, economic, military, political, really to have the whole international community pressuring Hamas.
Indeed. Regarding what you just said, there's 2 points that I would like to stress more. First of all, is the civilians and the Palestinian people in Gaza. And the second one is the pressure, the international pressure on Hamas, and also some voices that's on Israel as well. But let's start with the civilians. Yeah. We know that you mentioned that Israel really made all their effort to let all the civilians know that, hey, we're coming, here's the signs, please go to this certain places for your safety. But we also know that Hamas has made the largest hospital as their command center. Yeah. And also they're really holding all these civilians as their shields. to protect themselves, basically. Yeah. So how do the Israel's military really can distinguish between Hamas and civilians? How to really protect them from, because even though they wanted to run for their lives, they're just civilians, but they couldn't because they're like basically also hostages by Hamas as well. Yeah. Like, what can they do?
You are so true to say that Palestinians, as Israelis, are victims of Hamas. This is why we're saying, free Gaza from Hamas. Because we hear the voices of some of the Palestinians now that we enter into that area. And we hear them happy and saying, good that you came, to take Hamas off. It's a good question, how do we distinguish? And it's a very easy answer, actually. When you have somebody pointing weapon towards you, he's not an innocent civilian. When you have somebody point an RPG on your car, he's not an innocent civilian. And it's true that we see in life and also in some of the videos that Hamas and Islamic Jihad have been published, that their terrorists have been wearing regular clothes, not their military uniform that they have. So it is sometimes confusing, but there is no question when somebody is with a weapon towards you. So this one we target. Now we have intelligence. And we have planning of this operation. This is, again, it's not coming out of spontaneous reaction. This is coming from targets that have been looked at by experts. And within our experts, we always have lawyers, international humanitarian law experts, who are making sure that every target that we're choosing is according to the international humanitarian law. And if there is any doubt about that, then we postpone. And I want to give an example. We had a fight where we had our IDF soldiers coming towards a building, towards a neighborhood, and then Hamas was sending 100 children and women, Palestinians, towards them. Of course that there was no question. Of course that we did not have this fight. Okay, so we definitely have clear lines. Again, this is the difference between a responsible country, a democracy, and the way that we have our decisions and plans, and the fact that we're fighting against a terror organization. And I will say, it's the first time in the world. It's the first time that we're having such a complex, challenging war. Nobody before it was fought like this. So if anybody has a better solution how to fight a terror organization that is inside civilians without harming the civilians, we're very much open to hear that. I can give example about the Shifa hospital that you're mentioning, because it shows the complexity. We gave warning to the hospital for more than 2 weeks before that we're going to come. We had an opening corridor, humanitarian corridor, for the people from the hospital to go to the south part. When we entered, we didn't bomb from the air, but we came in a ground operation with medical teams, with people who speak Arabic, with medical equipment, with fuel for the operation of the hospital. And then we entered, and what did we find? We find military command office in the X-ray department. We find weapons and ammunitions on the MRI. We found the shafts on the basement going down to the tunnels from the hospital itself. We saw the video cameras showing the footage of the hostages being brought there on October 7th. So all of that was evidence. Now, today, the hospital is operating in a hybrid operation. It's an amazing example that no one had before. From the first floor up, think about your hospital here in Taipei. First floor up, it's a civilian operation, which means that they still have medical care and they still have people come and receive what they're needing. And from the ground floor down, it's under IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, the military control. And they have taken out the tunnels. This is the complexity of this war. It's not an easy one. It's really not an easy one.
Like you said, that Hamas initiated this war in October. Everyone's definitely shocked by the attack. But also, as Israel enters Gaza, there's more pressure on Israel as well, because there's a global sympathy toward the people, the Palestinian people. And we know that the United Nations even condemns Israel as the possibility of violating the war crime. So what's your take on this? How do you see this, and how do you really just legitimate all the actions, like you said, because like, of course you have to fight back. But even though with all the pressures, like how do you face this pressure? How do Israel face this pressure?
I think that the way that we are stating this is basically we are telling the people, leaders, parliament members, politicians, key personnel, we are showing them what happened on October 7th. And when people see that, they understand. They understand few things. They understand how education system by the Palestinians really educated the children into hate and violence, and that this is a problem that it's not only for Israel to solve. This is actually a problem that we, all of us, the international community, needs to solve. They understand that there's a saying called the West is next, that this is not only a problem of Israel. This is against all Jews around the world, and there are Jewish communities also here in Taiwan, but definitely in other places, and that they need to take care of them. They understand that we see the terrorism and this extreme ideology is relevant also here in Asia. Only 2 days ago, we saw the attack in the Philippines. We saw a couple of weeks ago the attack in India happening. So this is not only relevant to us, this is relevant for many other countries, and people know that. And I think that people also understand that we need to find a solution that it's not only the responsibility of Israel. Now, we are saying with the support of the US, which is very important for us, that there is a lot the international community can do. One, they can put the pressure not only on Hamas, but also on the other proxies. Proxies are being held and guided by Iran. And we see that in few fronts now. We see it in Hamas in Gaza and Islamic Jihad. We see it in Hezbollah in Lebanon. And we see it with the Houthis in Yemen. The Yemen has just had missiles coming towards Israel. Each missile is about $8 million. Yemen is a very poor country. Where does the money come from? At the end, this is all coming from Iran. And if the international community will not state very loud and clear to Iran that this is unacceptable, then the problems that we're going to have are much bigger than the current situation only between Israel and Gaza. So we have been stating from day one, we don't want this war to be extended any further. But what we're seeing on our northern border with Hezbollah and what we're witnessing with the disturbing of Iran is something that needs to concern all the international community.
Do you believe that after this conflict, will Israel be more safer? Especially because, like you just mentioned, like Hamas, even though if Israel can really eradicate Hamas through this war, through this force, maybe another Hamas would appear again in this globe.
Yeah.
How will Israel be more safe after this conflict?
We are only, I don't know if to say the beginning, I hope it's the middle of this war with Gaza, and that it will stay only this war with Gaza. And I don't know what will happen next. We're not sharing our military operational planning for this, but it will take longer because this is really an intense one. But as I was saying before, there are other actors in the area. And Iran and Hezbollah are the immediate threat that we're seeing now. So I don't know what will happen, and there is a big question how this war will be evolved. And that will answer maybe about the security of Israel after that. What we can say is that we do not want to control Gaza. We do not want to conquer Gaza. There is no intention of that. We left in 2005 without an intention to go back. This is one. The second, The Palestinians will have to choose a responsible and I hope better leadership for themselves. But this is up for the Palestinians to choose. The third is that we will not be able to have any military threat, security threat from Gaza on our border, and I will extend that. Also from Hezbollah on the north border with Lebanon towards Israel. And on that, we have UNIFIL. We have the UN peace forces that are there on a recognized international solution which should be implemented on that ground. So we will see what will be the solution. It will take some time until that, but we will not be able to go to the same situation again. And I really trust that with responsible leadership from all sides, we will be able at the end to go back into living at peace in our homes, both Israelis and Palestinians. This is important for all of us.
Yes. As we all can see, this war, in fact, any war is ruthless. The greatest victim are always innocent civilians. We pray for the day when peace arrives. Thank you, Maya, so much for joining us again and updating us the more situations of it.
Thank you.